Group here, isn't it? So, you know, it's funny that, I mean, this is mostly young for any of us that are over 35, right? You know, it seems when we pick our pictures, we pick pictures as we get younger and younger and younger. We don't like pictures of ourselves now. So, my name's Rory, and I enjoy your city. I enjoy coming here. I'm from Vancouver in Canada. And what my job is I used to do a lot of games, and where what we've got is we've got a group that really kind of takes that knowledge, and we're really kind of driving real-time 3D into industry. And I'll spend a couple minutes here talking about how I think that applies, and then during today there's some brilliant people talking about that more in depth. So, welcome. So when we think of this, I kind of like this slide because it talks to me about the passion that all of us in Unity have about driving value, not only in the gaming market, but then how can we drive that even farther? And it really kind of comes down to this idea of we take a game engine, and then how do we then use that game engine to kind of apply it beyond gaming? And it's really this, when we think of digital twin. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about digital twin here for a couple minutes. And digital twin isn't new. I mean, Korean industry has been driving digital twin probably a lot longer than Canada. We just have mountains and bears in Canada. I don't think we even have any industry. So when we think about digital twin, we've really kind of been doing digital twin for a long time. But there's innovation in digital twin. So we know that digital twin, when we look at it, there's 2D, right? We think of games in 2D. Games haven't been 2D for a long time. They were when I was doing games. Remember, I'm 35, right? So as we kind of think of evolving that digital twin, how does real-time 3D help? And we're going to spend some time talking about that. But first, when we think, let's review what digital twin is. So digital twin for me is really the virtualization of a process. So we think of all of our industry. It doesn't matter if you're designing a watch, it doesn't matter if you're designing a car or a TV, or you're a mall where you're shopping. By the way, I was late because I was shopping next door. Sorry about that. When you think of that, is when you bring data together, that disparate data, and you combine that is where a digital twin can start, right? So it's this idea of getting value out of our process and being able to see that in a different way. Once again, Korea has been pretty amazing at driving innovation in digital twin. Whether we look at time series graphs out of IoT data on PLCs, that's really kind of been driving that innovation and value. When we think of, how can we get more out of our invested capital, we really knew that digital twin was driving that. So when we think about real-time 3D, it's really this idea about taking that data and then putting it live. So for me, that's the exciting part. So I think of it in three parts. So first, it's live. So we had 2D, we have disparate data, we have a virtualization, but they're all disparate processes. Real-time 3D, and this is where the game engines come in, is really bringing that together into one live process. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But for me, it's real-time 3D, bringing more and more data together, making it a narrative in that 3D, and then being able to push it to any of our phones. I mean, I think all of us hate that in a company. I've had companies where you have to have special devices, and they all seem to be very expensive. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just use our phone for our workers to train them just on what they bring into the office? So when we think about, it's funny, I was looking at my timer and it's going down. That's what now I was like, oh my gosh, I've been talking for an hour. So when we think of it, so we think, okay, real-time 3D, how does that apply? So how do we take it? Because all of us, when we look at our data, when we look at our processes, they're very disparate, right? So they're quite complex. how do you possibly bring it all together? Well, you don't. I don't think you do. I think what you do, and I'm taking liberty on the PLM, so that's a product lifecycle management. So, but I'm up here, so I get to take liberty. But I think of it as when we, right from ideation of anything, and it could be a factory, could be a watch, could be a shoe, could be a mall in construction, and we put that through the process all the way to the end point. That end point could be consumers. It's one pipeline, and the challenge we have in industry is there's multiple pipelines. We have to redo that asset. I did visual effects for a long time, and the flame for that movie, when marketing wanted to use that flame, they usually didn't have access to that model. They had to recreate that model, in some cases for hundreds of thousands of dollars. We see that all the time in our process. So it's really this idea of starting to take chunks, taking that data, and allowing that real-time asset to be live through the whole process.